Hey there, everybody, this is Sean, and welcome back to another one of the Dukes of Dice podcast special interview episodes. These episodes are made possible by our awesome Patreon backers. If you want to support the Dukes of Dice, you can go on over to patreon.com/Dukes of Dice. Today, Alex is sitting down with Stephen Buonocore from Stronghold Games. One small issue, Alex had some technical difficulties with his microphone, so I apologize for some of the sound quality. However, I think it's a fantastic interview. Stephen has a lot of great things to say, so give it a listen.
Thank you so much for joining us for this Patreon episode of the Dukes of Dice, and joining me, the illustrious, you all know him by the Podfather, it's Stephen Buonocore from Stronghold Games. Stephen, how are you?
Hey, it is great to be here, man. Thank you, Alex, for having me on. I really appreciate it. And it's real early in the morning for you. I was amazed when you said, hey, we'll do this at 11 a.m. Eastern, but it's like 9 o'clock in the morning for you.
Yeah, awesome. we're talking time zones earlier, and obviously East Coast gets all the attention. All the shows are in East Coast time, and the Mountain Time Zone gets forgotten. So I just automatically subtract 2 hours. My brain's just kind of wired that way, so I get thrown off if that's not the case.
My buddy Mike Fitzgerald moved out to Colorado, so he's in Mountain. So I don't forget you guys. I like Mountain Time.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it out here. So Stephen, for folks who don't know, give us a little bit of a background of you in this industry, because a few years ago you really kind of made the plunge and decided to get into this hobby.
Yeah, 2009 actually was when the company started. So it's been like almost 7 years already. 2009, Stronghold Games cranked itself up, formed the company, and by 2010 we had our first games out, which were Code 777 and Survive: Escape from Atlantis, which to this day is still my biggest selling game, which is amazing, and it sells more year over year. And that kind of perfect game that can bring everyone together, because you can play with your kids, you can play with your grandmother, you can play with your buddies and stab each other with beer, over beer and pretzels. Just made the company kind of put us on the map, early on.
What is it about publishing that drew you in, that attracted you, that had you want to get into that side of the business?
Back then there was no such thing as there's no Kickstarter. It was really a cottage industry, if you can even call it that. And I was just a student sort of the industry. I was a huge gamer, and I was just really getting into the whole, influx of games coming in from Europe. So I was following the industry, seeing that, there seemed to be a bunch of smaller kind of publishers popping up, and I said, I could probably bring my background, because I've been in IT on Wall Street forever, and I've got, multiple business degrees. I figured I could bring a little bit of, smarts, business background, project management, which is my forte, and bring that to bear, with something that I loved, gaming. And then over time, and in the beginning, of course, I figured that this will be a small thing, almost like a hobby kind of thing. And then over time, of course, grow it into the, retirement job, so to speak, which it has become, because as of relatively recently, I am now full-time Stronghold Games. This is all I do. Hang out in my sweatpants here and talk to podcasters and run the company from the offices in New Jersey.
Not a bad way to make a living, right?
It is really wonderful, and I thank everybody who's listening out there for the ability to, for me to do this, because being in the corporate world for like 35 years obviously takes a toll on you. Really grates on you after a while, and the companies have always been good. I've always been working for some great companies, but now to really steer your own destiny, it's a great thing. And now I can really focus, and I think really over the last couple of years I've shown with the type of games and the quality of the games coming out that I can really focus on making sure that I'm always finding the greatest games out there to bring to gamers.
So I know games are like your children. The games that you guys have kind of under the Stronghold umbrella would be your kids. But someone on the guild asked, this was from Stephen Gordon, what game has been the most fun so far to be involved with, whether it's production, promotion, whatever?
Yeah, exactly. It's one of that's like, right, when somebody asks me what's my favorite game. Well, my favorite game actually is kind of easy. Well, what's your favorite beer? Because I'm a huge beer guy. Or I always say like, you have kids. Who's your favorite child, right? Because it's so hard to do that. To pick the favorite thing. From Stronghold's perspective, the game or games that I've had the most fun being involved with, or just kind of fun for me, I mean, certainly Space Cadets Away missions was a huge undertaking. 102 plastic miniatures in that game. It was the only game that we kickstarted just because we wanted to see if there was a model, if there was a market there for Stronghold Games to be like, like Fantasy Flight, with 100 plastic miniatures game. And obviously there was, because the game did very, very well. So that was a huge undertaking, and I'm very, very proud of the way that game ended up looking. It is just phenomenal. But a little more recently, being involved with Jeff Engelstein and family's The Dragon and Flagon, which we did this huge launch. We did a launch party at Gen Con, and it just retated about a month ago, right at the end of August. It's been a fantastic start to that game, because that game has got like me written all over it. When I want to play games, I don't play like big heavy Euros very often. I publish them because I know there's a great market, and I know a great one from a not so great one. But I kind of love games where I can sit around and just laugh out loud, have a beer, and just relax with my friends. And with the Dragon and Flagon, it's a barroom brawl. It's a tavern brawl where you're, going to be playing the archetypes of medieval fantasy, mages, clerics, barbarians, monks, and you are basically trying to become the greatest reputation. Get the greatest reputation at the Dragon and Flagon. You're going to be swinging from chandeliers, casting spells if you can do that, swinging your sword. And it's a 3D environment. Pushing tables, pulling up the rug on people, smashing chairs on them. Every piece that I mentioned is a piece in the game in 3 dimensions that you can actually physically, use. Your character can use to execute those moves. So that's got me written all over it. So I've got to say that my current favorite, like in my line, really, is the Dragon and Flagon.
Well, and as people can hear, you got to be a good promoter to be in this industry for sure.
You better.
And where does that come from? I mean, where does that come from for you, Stephen?
Before Stronghold Games, I never sold a thing in my life. I was never a sell. I told you, I just mentioned I've been in IT, and that was in early on, like application development, and then for most of my career on the infrastructure side, engineering and the project management of things that go on sort of behind the scenes in data centers and the networks and all of that. So where did it become that all of a sudden Stephen Buonocore has become this? And I mean, I hate to say those kind of things, like this kind of like gaming celebrity. It really is the personality. I mean, I have a passion for the things I do in general. I have a passion to be around people in a social environment. You and I played a couple of games. I mean, I think you could tell the audience that, like, I think I exude the let's just hang out and play a game and just be social together, right? So that's me. So doing this, I mean, you and I scheduling a little bit of time here to talk about games is just wonderful for me. Scheduling time for my friends to play some games is great. Being out there, at the conventions, and not being someplace that you can't find me, but being right there in the booth and shaking hands with everybody. Anytime I have not having a meeting, I'm always there trying to greet the fans, say hi, make sure they're having a good time. That's Stephen Buonocore in a nutshell. It's not like some kind of made up thing. That's just me, and I think anybody who knows me would be able to tell you that it's true.
So Steve O'Rourke, who we call on our guild the Name Father, not trying to steal your thunder or anything like that.
The Name Father, okay.
The Name Father. He names a lot of our episodes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he had asked a lot of things about sort of the personality differences between designers and publishers.
Okay.
And have you noticed anything that's a personality trait in common with publishers and a personality trait that's in common with designers? Is there really a big difference there as far as you've been able to see?
A difference in the
personality traits.
Personality between a designer and a publisher. Designers are smarter. I'm going to start with that. I am not a designer. I've never pretended to be. I've always said that everyone's got a game inside them that they'd like to do, and I'm sure that I could if I put my mind to it. But that's not me. I don't think that there's necessarily an overlap in a lot. I mean, and I would even think that on a lot of levels, designers are a little bit different than publishers. I think more publishers are maybe outgoing because they've got to make the relationships with people and things like that. And designers maybe a little more introverted. But that's not necessarily true. I mean, really, everyone has got different skills that they're bringing to bear to do what they love. So game designers are bringing that analytical skill to bear, and then they've got to go out and pitch the games. So I don't know that there really is any necessary overlap. It's interesting that, there are publishers that are designers. I take Ignacy Chevicek of Portal Games. He and I are good friends, and we're very different people. He is kind of that little bit of that introvert, and I'm the extrovert, but he's certainly great to speak to because he's so knowledgeable about the topics that he knows about. And he's got both sides of the fence. He's both, of course, publisher as president, but as, truly what he loves to do is design games.
And how do those two personalities, when they do grind up against each other, because I'd imagine, there are situations where you need something done one way or at a certain time, and a designer wants to maybe take a little more time, or vice versa, take your pick. But where's the conflict there, if there's any conflict with designer-publisher relationship?
Yeah, and I'll go back to Ignacy. In one of his books, I believe it was in the second book, where he had a statement somewhere in there, and he said, when I get your design, I have it. I'm going to pull it apart. I'm going to change it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that, because he has to put on the publisher hat and the developer hat. So a designer has to divorce themselves from their ego, once that they are working with a publisher. Publishers are trying to make sure that game is the best game possible to sell it. So you may not be able to put gold-plated dice into the game, for instance. There are certain...
Has that been a request?
No, but I'm using a superlative here. When somebody is looking to do something that just can't be done from a production standpoint or from a number of component standpoint, we're going to do the best that we can do to make sure that your game is in a great shape, and then that we can then sell it, at a reasonable price point, things like that. So there is, with some designers, it's as smooth as anything, and they'll just oh yeah, you're right. Oh, Stephen, yeah, that's good. That makes sense. Let's do it that way. And I love the give and take. I love going back and forth. Hey, Jeff Engelstein, Mike Fitzgerald, just give some props and shout outs to my good buddies who we designed together. We just go back and forth. We say, well, I don't think we can do it that way. Let's do this. And they're oh, that's pretty good. How about if we do it? And we just go back and forth, and it's iterative and it's collaborative. That's the best relationship that you can possibly have between publisher and designer. But sometimes it does get somewhat contentious. In the end, the publisher has to win because we then own the license for the game. I've had very, very few. I can count on on one hand and have fingers left over when it was literally sorry guys, this is the way it has to happen. I have to do it like this. It does, but not often.
So among the designers, and obviously you work with a ton of designers, illustrious designers, what is the most common? So we talked about traits that they share. Is there, when you're talking about not illustrious designers, but designers that come across you and trying to pitch games, what is the one thing that you consistently see that gets done wrong? And I think a lot of newer designers out there are always trying to get better and trying to find a way to get in your ear and get you to publish their game. What's the one thing that they most consistently do wrong that you see?
I would say that designers will, especially the newer ones, younger ones, younger in the industry, not necessarily by age, will not have a fully vetted rule set. So they'll show me a set of rules that are completely ambiguous. You can't you can't understand really what they're trying to achieve ultimately in the game. You need to get and that's not, and it's a separate skill set. I don't write rules. I don't want to write rules. A designer who is not really fluent in writing rules, and even one that is, should always get somebody else to read those rules, vet those rules, make sure that everyone understands when they're not sitting there next to you explaining the game, that people are going to be able to pick that up and learn the game, because that's the way the experience is going to be. So if I have a prototype in my hand and I don't understand what the rules are, that's going right back to them or into the garbage, as the case may be. It's not. I can't spend the time to get inside their head. So that's the one thing I can say to any designer: get the rules to somebody who could really, really work through them. And of course, the second thing is sort of related, but just even more basic. Make sure you're playing this game with people outside your inner circle. Your mother and your best friend, your spouse or significant other is going to tell you this is the greatest thing ever. But get brutal opinion, brutal honesty from someone else who doesn't know the game, doesn't know you. And there are plenty of people out there that love to play prototypes. And we'll pick them apart and pull them apart and tell you what's good and what's bad and how things work, and maybe even fix your rules for you too.
All right, let's dream a little for a second here, Stephen.
Okay.
Nick Hayes had a question for you. If you could get your hands on one IP or license, which one would it be?
Well, so we're probably going to be a major IP or something. Well, I am like the biggest Star Trek fan in the world. I'm a huge Trekkie from the original series. So I mean, I guess maybe it could be that. But there's been so many of those. A lot of them not good, but some more recent ones really getting good. Certainly that would be kind of cool. I'm also a huge fan of Tolkien. And I mean, when I say huge, I mean like everything. Like I've read the Silmarillion, which is the sort of the Old Testament of his of his works, if you kind of put it like biblically. It literally has like his own Bible references, so to speak, the way that the one created the universe and this and that and stuff like that. So I'm a huge fan of Tolkien. Big Lord of the Rings fan. In fact, my favorite game of all games is War of the Ring, which is a game that Fantasy Flight brought out. I even have the collector's edition of that game, which is just out of control. I love that. I love bringing that thing out every once in a while. So I would pick one of those two possibly, because I just I love those worlds so much, and to do something in one of those worlds with the right game, of course, because there's been a lot of games in both of those IPs. With the right game, I would love to do it.
Is there an underrated or forgotten game out there that you'd like to get your hands on and put a fresh coat of paint on it and breathe some new life into to kind of share it with this renaissance here in gaming?
Well, there was quite a publicized kerfuffle that went on with Merchant of Venus back about 3 or 4 years ago at this point. That Stronghold was going to do the game, but no, Fantasy Flight ended up doing the game. But that's very much water under the bridge, and it's created a great relationship between me and Chris Peterson of the president of Fantasy Flight. So I mean, I certainly wanted to do that one, but they did, and they did a phenomenal job on it. It just looks great. The other game that I've been public about, I would have done had the license been available was Magic Realm, which is another game by the same designer, Richard Hamblin. But that license, as well as we found out later, Merchant of Venus, was shrouded in who owned it and things like that. It was like shrouded in mysteries and riddles of everything. So I mean, that would be the game that I would pick. Magic Realm, huge game. I mean, the rule book in that game is bigger than anything else. People have called it, if you know the game, Advanced Squad Leader, the World War II tactical game. The rule book is like that. It's been called like the ASL of fantasy. So I would love to give that game a treatment in like some special edition with miniatures and stuff like that. But unfortunately, I think that ship sailed and that license is floating around in some place that would be very, very, very hard to get back.
What is the one thing you think the gaming consumer out there most frequently misunderstands about what a publisher does or the challenges a publisher might face?
The distribution chain, I would probably say. There's a very interesting thing that's just right now happening on Board Game Geek, and I'm trying not to read it because, not too much, because it'll just be too upsetting to me. But people are talking about the game Mechs
versus Minions.
Mechs versus Minions, that's it, by Riot Games. Now, they've put so much into that box. I mean, we were talking before about gold-plated dice. I mean, they've got everything in there but gold-plated dice. It's unbelievable. And the final cost to the consumer is only $75. That's astonishing. Now, here's why they can do that. And I'm going to actually address this on my podcast, Board Games Insider, which we'll talk about later. We're a little plug there. So, Riot Games is a $1.6 billion with a B dollar company in revenue per year. To put that in perspective, our entire industry, all of hobby games, is $1.2 billion. What did I say for them? 1.6 billion for them, 1.2 billion for us. They are that big. They could buy Asmodee. That's how big they are. Asmodee being, of course, the largest hobby game publisher by far in our industry. So they're producing this game essentially at cost, simply to do something nice, to give back to the fans of this IP, which is by the way an online game. It's a I forgot what they
League
call
of Legends.
it.
League of Legends.
League of Legends is the game, and I forgot what the genre is. It's it's a multiplayer skirmish game. There's a name for that.
I think it's a real-time strategy is broadly the term.
Yeah, and there's also an M word, like a multiplayer. I don't know. Whatever the point is.
Massively multiplaire online game.
Something
yeah,
like
MMO.
That. But it's astonishing that they're doing it, and people are thinking now that people are saying, and I've heard, and again I'm trying to stay out of the forum because it's just going to get me crazy. People saying like, "Whoa, have you been being ripped off for years by all these other publishers who can't do this for $75?" I'm like, the answer is no, guys. It's absolutely not. Riot Games is going to be selling these games first of all direct. They're producing 30,000 units, which is an unheard of number of units, first of all, so they can get their cost down to something reasonable, because what's in that box would cost more than $75 if you were going to do it. In any like smaller quantities, like we print 5,000 units in a pretty decent sized game. I printed more than that for like Terraforming Mars, which is a huge game for me, a huge hit for me, and I'm going back to a second printing already. But 30,000 units, one print run is a tremendous number. That's multiple containers. I think we calculated, Jeff Engelstein and I were sitting around and we were calculating the number of containers to bring that over from the factory. It was staggering, like 10 full containers of games. So they got their cost down to where they could at least break even. Maybe they make a few dollars. And they're only selling direct. Whereas in 90% of hobby gaming, a publisher sells to a distributor sells to a retailer, and then the retailer sells to the customer, all the gamers out there. Everybody in that chain's got to make money, and that's the way that it works in most manufacturing and certainly in publishing, that you have this chain of distribution. So there's a very slim margin that we all work on, and that we all have to share across that entire spectrum. So my MSRP of a $75 game, I'm getting a very small percentage of that amount. Distributors are getting even smaller one. Actually, the people that make the most money on any given unit of a game is the retailer, because the retailers are going to buy essentially for 50% of the MSRP. I don't begrudge them at that at all, because they're taking the risk of opening the store, the lights, their employees, insurance, etc. They've got to make their amount of money, and they've got to keep that part running. But publishers are not, I repeat, not getting rich selling the games that we're selling. We're doing well. I've now just done well enough that I can actually do that, leave the corporate world and do this. But I'm a one-man show still. I've got lots of smart people around me. I hook up with great designers. I make great partnerships. I bring in great designers and great artists to work with. So I don't do it all alone per se, but the company itself has got one employee, me, and I'm not a rich man. So that's the part that really the average gamer I don't think quite gets it all, or quite understands that scale that goes on there.
What you can't see is in between questions, Stephen is shoveling caviar into his mouth. So.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm drinking a glass of water here at 11 o'clock in the morning. There's no caviar going on here, or champagne or anything like that.
All right, just checking. If you could go back in time and advise 2009, 2010 era Stephen Buonocore on anything, what would you tell him about what you know now? Straighten him out a little.
Straighten that guy out a little, huh? Throttle print runs a little bit differently sometimes. I mean, sometimes you overprint, sometimes you underprint. So make better choices there. It's hard. I mean, I feel very proud of the things I've done, and I've really made the right decisions in a lot of ways. Certainly moving faster into the great partnerships that I've made, but I certainly did it fairly fast anyway. I I had not made some of the great German partnerships, early on, which I have now, being a strategic partner of Eggertspiele and Spielworks and 2F Spiele. I mean, these are three premier German game companies where I now have the ability to do all of their game releases because they love working with me. We love the relationship we have. They know that I can sell their games and market their games well. So, maybe moving toward that faster early on, but I certainly have it now, and things are now in this industry ramped up to the point where we can do more. We can sell more games. So back then, I probably couldn't have done it anyway because the industry was half the size that it is now, if that. We've really seen double-digit percentages of growth across the board in this industry. Every publisher has seen that, and that's a really great thing. And of course, the Asmodee going out there and really pouring serious capital and buying companies has helped us all quite a bit. And I know there's some gamers that would say that that's not the case, but it really is. It's helped all of us. And remember, everybody out there, there's one Asmodee and there's 1,000 smaller companies, right? So they can only still do X, and they're one company you're going to look at, and then you got all of these other choices, and we're not going away. So it's a good thing that they're pouring that marketing and that capital into this industry, helping us all grow it together.
All right, I want to go back to the Dice Tower Con, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I remember, though, one of the most surprising Dice Tower Award picks for me was Time Stories winning Most Innovative over 504. Were you surprised by that?
I cried for days. I just kept.
Oh.
No. No. Funny thing, I'm not. I wasn't. I'm never surprised, and I don't expect to win awards. Again, if I wasn't nominated, if 504 was not nominated for Most Innovative, that would have been a crime. That would have been absurd. Because of course, it certainly was unbelievably innovative.
Whether you like it or not, I don't
absolutely.
think anyone can question the innovative aspect to it.
You can't, right? So where a designer, Friedem and Fries in this case, could put into a box 504 unique games, and that's just astonishing that he could have created such a system that could do that. But Time Stories was wildly popular, and it's a great game. So people voted for the one where was more popular, or at least as popular. Certainly, we sold quite a bit, and it's been out of print now for 6 months. We're bringing it back right now. It'll be back in stores like within by the time you hear this, almost within the next 3 weeks. And they picked the one that they said, wow, this is just a great game. I just love this game, and I want to explore this game. 504 is more of that mental exercise. Like you play worlds. You'll play like world 692, and you'll play that world. And you're like, wow, okay, that's how that fit together. Now let's play world 317, a completely different experience. Not every game in that box, not 504 games, are going to be your favorite. Oh, these are now my top 504 games. No, of course not. They're all an exercise in how a designer can work to put the mechanics of a game together. To me, if you're a game designer, if you're an aspiring game designer, if you ever thought about being a game designer, or just want to see how do designers do this thing, you absolutely should own a copy of 504. To me, it's like required reading for game design. It's astonishingly amazing in that regard. And no, I was not upset, and I don't. I lick my wounds and go off and have a beer.
All right, you're known as the Podfather. How has podcasting played into your business? How have you enjoyed it? How is it important to what you do?
It's fundamental. I mean, it's as important to me as any part of what I do to run this company. Early on, I realized that if you're a gamer and you spend as much of your free time possible playing games, sitting around a table, playing games, you want to do this, you want to get this done, and in your other spare time, or in times between your spare time, when you're commuting, or when you're doing something else, and you're listening to two people, blathering on about board games, you're obviously the kind of person that I want to connect to. I want you to be hearing me, and I want you to be thinking about the games that I'm doing, thinking about Stronghold Games and the games that I'm bringing out. So that's you're my target market. The people listening to us right now is absolutely my target market. You're the alpha gamers out there. So from the beginning, I started, I was listening to podcasts anyway. I mean, again, before Stronghold Games, I was a huge podcast listener, huge listener to Tom and the Dice Tower, the D6 generation. Just kept following everybody that was out there that was, doing great shows, and then started just getting myself onto shows, finding out new ones. We put it out there, like anybody who wants us on the show, wants me on the show, Operation Podfather, let me get out there. I wanted to connect to all the gamers out there that are using all of their time to go and listen to people about board games. And then, of course, Ignacy Chevicek and I, Ignacy, president of Portal Games, and Stephen Buonocore, president of Stronghold Games, we got together and decided to start our own podcast called Board Games Insider. There's my little plug for us. And you can find us at boardgamesinsider.com or on iTunes and Stitcher and every place. And we have a 30-minute podcast. It's now gone to weekly, 30 minutes. We talk about the news of what's going on in the industry. We talk about the insides of the industry, how to get into the industry, some of the things we're talking about now about designers and publishers and things. And then we give you what's happening in the companies, our respective companies. 30 minutes in and out. And then we do that with and we intersperse interviews now. Ignacy is interviewing designers, and I'm interviewing publishers. So we're playing to our strengths week over week. So it's very important for me to do this. It's part of the outreach and the marketing of the company.
Just listen to it after you listen to Dukes of Death.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Okay, I want to talk about one of the hot games that you guys have coming out. And that's Terraforming Mars.
Very hot.
It's an incredibly hot game right now. Beyond just how great this game is, and I want you to kind of describe a little bit of it for folks out there, but beyond that, why so many Mars games these days?
Well, yeah, I mean, that plays into the hotness of the game as well. And why so many Mars games? Just Mars simply is a hot topic right now. I listened to, on today's Thursday, Tuesday I believe it was, or maybe Monday, Elon Musk of SpaceX. He was giving this huge press conference about his vision for SpaceX, which, by the way, is a privately funded corporation dedicated to creating rockets, rocketry, transportation systems, and getting human beings interplanetary, getting us to Mars. It's sort of like the final goal of his vision, that he believes that we absolutely must be a multi-planet species. It's a phenomenal thing. So he has a strategy on how this can happen. He's working on something. NASA is working on something as well. Then there's another group out in Europe called Mars One, who's working on another way of getting human beings onto Mars. So it's simply a hot topic now, and there's rovers going, and we have missions planned after missions planned. So big topic. Obviously, designers are, into culture, pop culture, what's happening. They see it as a great topic. And I'll mention Ignacy again at Portal Games. He's got First Martians, which he's going to riff on his Robinson Crusoe system. It's a cooperative game. You got to survive there as your First Martians. And, of course, there was a movie made, right? The Martian, Matt Damon. All of these things, a confluence of, this is a great topic for a game. Terraforming Mars has actually been in development for a long time by Fricks Games out in Sweden. It's a family. They've got 9 brothers and 3 or 4 sisters. Big family, and they're all one way or another involved in their company. And they pitched the game to us 2 years ago, and it wasn't quite ready. So we said, "This is great. We really think this has got promise." We worked with them to do some development, and then finally, middle of this year, the game was ready and we got it out there. And the reception to this game has been astonishing. It is a great game, don't get me wrong, but the reviews are off the charts. I sold out. I'm completely sold out of the game, and the street date for the game was yesterday. So I was sold out 3 weeks before when all the orders came in. I was what's called allocated into distribution. Distributors wanted X. Everybody had to get less than that because they did not have the supply to supply everybody, essentially. And I have enough copies. I have some copies for Essen and some copies for BGG Con, and that's it. So we're going, obviously, to reprint it again. big game.
It's number 3 on the hotness as we're speaking right now.
And it's been trending between number 1 and number 5 since Gen Con. Since right before Gen Con. It's just been trending up at the top. It's, just incredible. And it continues to get great reviews, so everything is going well. I don't even think I should say it because it doesn't sound like. Well, I'm going to say it anyway. All right. I predicted just an internal thing. Somebody said to me, "How you think it's going to have legs?" I said, "I think this is going to be one of the big games of the year, and I think it's going to be before the end of the year, because by the end of the year there'll be thousands of games out there, of course, and people will be ranking it and rating it on Board Game Geek." I said it's going to be a top 100 game before the end of the year. Games sometimes will rocket up fast, and sometimes it takes a while to get there. But I think this is going to be. Game's going to have legs. It's going to do very well for Stronghold Games, and I think gamers will love the game once they play it.
How much as a publisher do you care about something like BGG Top 100?
I care about anything people are saying about my games. So, sure, yes, absolutely. I mean, we can't. There's only 100 games, and always the newer ones are creeping in and pushing older ones out anyway. In a lot of ways. So you don't say like I gotta be there. No, but you want people to be saying good things. But you know what? Even more than saying good things, you want people to be saying things about your game. The worst possible thing is nobody's talking about it. Even if they're saying like, this game's alright, I can play it. If you're talking about it, people are talking about it. If you and your guys, and you're talking about it on the air, that's just going to help. Gamers at their friendly local game stores are talking about the games. That's going to always help us out.
Another one coming out that people are very excited about is from a designer that a lot of people are very excited about, Alexander Pfister.
Oh, yeah.
And boy, he is unbelievably hot as a designer, just in terms of the awards he's brought in lately.
He is. Alexander Pfister, last year, it was the end of last year, released Mombasa and won the Kenner Spiel des Jahres. Fantastic, heavyish, mid-heavyweight game. This year, again, he wins the award with Isle of Skye. And Mombasa continues to win other awards. Won International Gamers Award. I believe it won Deutsche Spielpreis. I mean, he just keeps doing great games, and people are like Pfister. He's like the next Stefan Feld, because Feld was huge. The guy's amazing. The guy is. I've yet to meet the guy. Can't wait. I'm going to meet him at the Eggertspiele booth party on Wednesday at Essen. So yeah, hot as hot can be. When Eggertspiele told me that they were doing the Pfister game Great Western Trail, I was like, that I'm excited about this. And then I played it at the Gathering of Friends invite convention, and it was great. You're moving around a circular path of the Great Western Trail around between Texas and Kansas City, moving cattle. In the meantime, you have to build buildings that are going to help you out. Employ cowboys and things like that, and then you bring your cattle to be trucked off on trains, scoring victory points in the end, because it is a Euro game. That's what's the goal of almost every Euro game. As you do it well, you're scoring points. I think that the fans of Pfister and his weight game are going to really, really like this, because it's got a deck building element too. So he's introduced some new mechanics into the game as well. I would like to state that I think this is his best design yet. So we'll see what people say, but the buzz on it's great. So I think we're gonna be doing very well with this. We've had some delays in getting it here, so it's now December 7th release, which is kind of late. But I'm hoping to get it onto the market as soon as I can, because I know gamers would really love this, for the holiday season. And we do have it on pre-order. All of the games we're talking about are on pre-order at the Stronghold Games website. So I do ship to my pre-order customers before they go to anybody else. So if you want the game definitely before the end of the year for Christmas or the holidays, you can come to strongholdgames.com and you can order them there, and they'll ship as soon as they get in.
Always the master salesman.
I try. We just throw the plugs in gently. We don't oversell it, just gently.
Yeah, just sell it just the right amount.
Just enough.
I will say I'm disappointed New Mexico isn't included in this game. So
that was a little
from that stance, I might have to boycott it. I don't know.
A little too far west for the Great Western Trail, I think.
Oh, we're come on, perfect, right in the heart of the Southwest. Don't look past New Mexico. I'm just saying.
Okay, we won't. Next game will be the New Mexico expansion of the Great Western Trail. How's that?
I like it.
All right.
I like it. All right, before we let you go, I try and wrap this up with my stolen version of the Dukeological lightning round,
Uh-oh.
without the sound effects, but with the same kinds of questions. So, first question in the Dukeological lightning round.
I love
BJ
this.
from Board Game Gumbo wants to know, what beer would you recommend as a good pairing for my village?
A beer pairing for my village. Well, my village is sort of set in Germany, and of all the styles of German beers, and I'm a huge fan of German beers and traditional styles. I'm gonna pick a Hefeweizen. That's the German wheat beers that have they have part wheat, part barley in them, and they've created the style. So I'm gonna pick one. If I have to pick an exact brand, we'll go with I don't know if I should go like American style, one of the American versions of it. Let's just go Hefeweizen, and then you guys can pick the favorite one that you like. Traditional German wheat beer that actually is cloudy with the yeast in it. Fantastic. Very refreshing. Very refreshing during the
Very
summer.
nice. Very nice. Question number 2. Of the 2017 games you expect, I'm going to have you pick one.
Uh-oh.
You have to pick one. What are you most excited about?
Of the 2017 games?
Yes.
I don't know.
For the
20.
Stronghold
What do I know?
games.
Oh, from my.
Yeah, oh yeah, your line. Something you know about.
But you realize that I haven't announced any 2017. Well, that's not true. I've announced some, and a lot I can't talk about. So I'm gonna have to pick something that I've already spoken about, right?
Or you could just break news here. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I know you. I bet you are. But we have to keep things, got to keep things under wraps for a little bit. But we did announce Fields of Green with Artipia Games, a co-publication with Artipia Games, and it's gotten a lot of great buzz when they first announced it. They do a Kickstarter, and then they ship to the Kickstarter, and then we do a second edition with us. And it's a card drafting game a la Among the Stars. Some people don't like the sci-fi theme of that, so now you're going to be doing that sort of in a farming theme. You're going to be creating your fields. It's going to look really beautiful on the table as you put fields out, and there's additional currencies in the game as well. So it's not a single like energy currency that is in the game. They're going to be building things on those cards and then utilizing them as well, keeping things close to water and things like that. So, I mean, at the moment, that's really the only major game that I announced, so I have to go with Fields of Green. Or Stronghold Undead, which is my expansion to Stronghold 2nd Edition. I guess I can mention that too.
Fair enough. Question number 3 of the Dukeological Lightning Round. Lacrosse or hockey?
Oh, that's easy. I was a hockey fan back in the day. I don't really follow sports very much anymore, unfortunately. I just don't have the time anymore. But yeah, I was a big hockey fan. New York Rangers fan. Hate the Islanders. Sorry, you guys who live on the island there. But now I'm in New Jersey, so I do kind of like the New Jersey Devils too. Kind of have to go local when you can. So hockey.
I'm a Colorado Avalanche guy.
All right. Sure.
Which in recent years has been a little disappointing.
Yeah, you gotta. I've been a New York Jets fan for my life, so just talk about disappointing, So Jets and Mets, and they don't tend to be very competitive. So.
Question number 4: your number 1 piece of advice for an aspiring publisher?
Don't get into publishing. No, that's not true. Nah, the fun, and as we mentioned before, there's 1,000 of us. There's one big guy, a couple of big guys. So, there's plenty of room out there. I mean, utilize. For an aspiring publisher, you're obviously going to utilize Kickstarter, and do that to the fullest extent. But be smart, maybe, about what you're going to put on Kickstarter, because certain things obviously do better. Heavy Euros are not going to do well there. Miniatures games or games that include miniatures are going to do well there. I'm not a fan myself to do Kickstarters because they take an incredible amount of time, in organizing those Kickstarters. I'd much rather be able to get a game going and then get the next game going and get the next game going so I can juggle multiple things at the same time. But for a new publisher, leverage that platform because it's also going to raise you the capital needed, and it's going to be able to see, well, is there a demand for the game? Is there a big enough demand for the game? You can figure it out, via what the Kickstarter backers tell you. Is there enough demand for the game? Did they give you enough money to produce the game? And be smart. Work with printers that have got a lot of experience. I'll give a quick shout out to Panda because I don't print these days with Panda, not for any reason, but they do a lot of games with Kickstarter and they've got a lot of experience, so you certainly do that. And a great shout out to, of course, my friends at Ludofact Germany, Ludofact Asia, and now Ludofact USA, where I printed Terraforming Mars. That was printed partly and definitely finally assembled in USA. So these guys know how to create games and can help you quite a bit in getting your game from conception to final game.
Question number 5 of the Dukeological Lightning Round. Your favorite con to attend and why?
Pretty easy as well. Board Game Geek Con in November. It's such a great game. I mean, obviously the alpha gamer is there. If you're gonna find yourself in Dallas, Texas, of all places, and trying to fight to get a ticket, trying to fight to get a hotel room there because they've gotten so big that they probably need to do something about that soon. And it's a small enough con where it's not crazy to organize for me. I get to meet the gamers, play with the gamers, sell some games to the gamers, of course, all the new Essen releases, and then really relax, have a beer with the gamers, and especially my Knights of the Stronghold, my demo team. Give a big shout out to them. We always have a little party for them every year there. It's a good time, and I really like that. Second shout out, I'll give it to Tom and the Dice Tower Con, and where we met. Great convention, really relaxed. Hot then in Florida in that time of year, but it is a really well done convention as well.
Not a Dukeological Lightning Round question, but just kind of a follow-up for me. Essen, how is that experience? As that's one that I've always kind of dreamed of going to personally.
It's the biggest convention for me of the year, by far, hands down. Nothing even comes close to the importance of that convention for Stronghold Games year after year. We sell more there than we sell at all the other conventions, any one of the other conventions. It's twice as much as at Gen Con. And Gen Con this year was tremendous for me with Terraforming Mars and the Dragon and Flagon and City of Spies. We sold out of 3 games there. At Essen, I sell twice what I sell at Gen Con, at least. And so that's great, of course. But also, very importantly, I'm meeting with all my European partners, creating more partnerships with them. Everybody I mentioned, all those partnerships that I mentioned that I have, and all the designers, I met them there. So we do so much business while they're there. If you looked at my schedule, my meeting schedule, you would say, Buonocore, you're out of your mind. I literally have a meeting every half hour for the entire time I'm there. It's like a revolving door. I have a dedicated meeting space, and we just meet, discuss games, discuss how we can partner together. If it's not now, maybe it's in the future. It's pandemonium for 5 days for me.
Question number 6. I'm going to make you play favorites here.
Oh, no.
Who is your favorite designer of all time?
Ooh, wow. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to give you my traditional favorite, I think. And one I don't have in my line yet. Martin Wallace. I've been a fan of Martin Wallace for years, since his early game designs like Age of Steam. Struggle of Empires is still one of my favorite games of all time. Multiplayer game of conflict that can't be a pile on the leader kind of thing because of the way the mechanics work out. You can't do that in the game. And I've always wanted to work with Martin. And Martin and I are friends now. We're friends in the industry, but he's just so busy working and doing games with lots of people, and he had his own company for a while. But I am certain, beyond the shadow of a doubt, and I don't have anything that I can announce or that's even in the works, so it's not like I'm saying that. I'm certain that I'll be working with Martin Wallace in the future, and I guarantee that he would immediately go into my The Great Designers series, which is my series of games. Now I'm going to have 7 games in that series by the end of the year, because Martin has had a significant contribution to the hobby gaming industry, and and he is truly a brilliant designer. So I'll go with Martin.
You heard it here, folks. Martin Wallace publishing all of his games with Stronghold Games next year.
That is a lie. Though I would take him up on it in a second, but he's got a lot of stuff to work on, so I can't do that.
Fair enough. And final question of the Dukeological Lightning Round, and of course the most ridiculous.
Oh, no.
If you could be any flavor of ice cream, what flavor of ice cream would you be and why?
Okay, yes, truly ridiculous. Um, um, I don't know, something really, really disgustingly chocolatey, so chocolatey that your eyes tear as you're eating it. Dark chocolate, bitter dark chocolate with creaminess and sweetness. I'm a chocoholic, as you can probably tell. I love my chocolate. I have to keep chocolate out of the house because I would probably weigh like 400 pounds if I had chocolate here because I would eat it all, puke, and then eat more chocolate because I just love it so much. So, the person that comes up with the newest, most interesting, crazy amount of chocolate ice cream, I guess that would be the one that I would go for.
Triple chocolate's not enough. We're talking like quintuple
Oh,
chocolate.
yeah, I go much more than triples. That's child's play.
Child's play. Child's play. All right, Stephen, fantastic conversation with you. If folks want to reach out to you, get in touch, follow, see what Stronghold Games is doing, what's the best way for them to do
Thanks,
that?
Alex. I appreciate it. So, the best way to find out about Stronghold is the website is strongholdgames.com. I mentioned that we now have pre-orders opened for our 7 end-of-year releases. 7 end-of-year releases. I had to count them on my website. Right there on the front page, I give the what's on pre-order, what's the tentative date, the price for the pre-order. You get a discount if you order, through us pre-order. You trust that you want that game. So games like Great Western Trail that we mentioned, Fuji Flush, Fabled Fruit, Sola Fide, The Reformation, La Granja, the dice game No Siesta, Jorvik, which is another great designer series, The Fog of War by Jeff Engelstein. All those games, a lot of them got huge buzz on them. All on pre-order right now. 30% off of the MSRP, plus it'll ship to you before it's in retail. So for those gamers who want it early, come over. You can order that, or just order from your friendly local or friendly online game store. That's cool too. Follow us on Twitter at Stronghold Games. We are very active there, very interactive with the fans as well. Facebook is /Stronghold Games. And as I mentioned, my own podcast, Board Games Insider, with Ignacy Chevicek, president of Portal Games, and Stephen Buonocore, president of Stronghold Games. That's the way the announcer starts it every time, with his great voice, much better than my New Jersey accent. And we do this 30-minute podcast weekly now, giving you a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look at both companies and the industry and tips about the industry and stuff like that. Thank you, Alex, so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. We've gone about an hour. I hope that's not too long for your listeners, but I hope they enjoyed it, and I thank everybody out there for being fans of Stronghold Games. Thank you so much.
Stephen, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Hey, hopefully talk to you again soon.
Well, big thanks again to Stephen Buonocore, and thanks again to all of our amazing Patreon supporters. Their contributions opened up this additional content for the Dukes of Dice, and we really appreciate that. And once again, if you're interested in supporting the Dukes of Dice, you can head over to patreon.com/Dukes of Dice. We really appreciate that. Again, thank you for listening. This is Sean saying, Hail Hydra.